Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, deslicers, peasants, vassals. I'm a useful idiot, and today I want to talk about the fact that the new Japanese government will lead Japan down a very dark path. And so they had this new election, and Abe was re-elected as prime minister, their 7th prime minister in as many years, and a reversion back to the Democratic Party of Japan. And this was the party established by the United States and Japan in the aftermath of World War II, and they've remained in power in Japan all these years up until recently, when the opposition party was brought in for a short period as a reaction to the economic collapse of 5 years ago and the aftermath of the tsunami. So now we look at this election, and it's kind of interesting in a couple of ways. One, unlike the American population, in Japan they threw the bums out. But also we need to bring up the fact that in Japan, like here, the Japanese electorate has a choice between bootlicker number 1 and bootlicker number 2. So it really doesn't matter, although we have some major red flags going off with the reestablishment of the old Japanese status quo. And one of these things we have is the move back towards more quantitative easing from the Bank of Japan, the Central Bank of Japan. So just like the Federal Reserve here in the United States and what they want to do in the Eurozone, the central banks want to indulge in unending quantitative easing or money printing. And in addition to this, they want to cut interest rates and raise taxes. So Japan's traditional role of having a lot of wealth because of the Japanese savings rate is going to be, not only has it been decimated, but it will be further decimated by raising taxes and continued cuts in the interest rate. So that's not really going to help anything. And then the quantitative easing is going to be another $118 billion more. And I remind you that Japan has been doing stimulus packages and quantitative easing on a regular basis for the last 20 years. And they've just entered into their 5th recession. So it doesn't appear to be doing any good. So they're going down this economic dark path. As I brought up in my last video on Japan, fact is that the bonds of Japan are 90%, Japanese bonds are 90% of the Tier 1 capital of Japanese banks. So that means the only ones buying and propping up the Japanese government are Japanese banks, and the Japanese banks are propping up the Japanese government, and the government's propping up the banks, just like everywhere else. Broke banks and broke governments. And astonishingly, we're going to have the Bank of Japan asset purchases are now going to be close to 40% of Japanese GDP. It's a staggering number. So good luck with Japan wanting to move into the global bond market, particularly in an era when we should see a collapse in the bond market. So bad timing on Japan's part. So in addition, with this this money printing, this quantitative easing, and more stimulus, and raising taxes and cutting the interest rates, Japan is going to continue to be very aggressive in the global currency wars. And Japan has always been aggressive in currency valuation, but we're going to see them really step up to the plate now. And so that's another dark path for China, for Japan to go down. And the reason why I brought up China is because that's another thing that's different about the new Japanese government and a dark path they're going down. The new government is very hawkish on China, and we could see the tensions between China and Japan amp up considerably, and they already have. And we could see more confrontations in those islands off the coast of Japan and China. So that's a bad move. And then to put the icing on the cake, we have Japan now, this new government wants to possibly change the constitution that will allow Japan to have a military and not just a defense force. And of course, this would be a drastic change. Their constitution in 1945 outlawed Japan from having an offensive military capability. And of course, their defense forces are pretty formidable as it is, and then put in conjunction with U.S. forces, they do have a military presence. But this would allow them to, one, have a military confrontation with China, should they desire, and will also allow Japanese troops or Japanese boots on the ground to be part of coalition operations all through the Asian region and anywhere else for that matter. So we could end up seeing Japanese troops side by side in American operations around the globe. So this is all these are very interesting developments. And then on top of that, of course, the new Japanese government, which is the old Japanese government, is a huge supporter of the nuclear industry. So we've seen this backlash against the nuclear industry since the disaster of Fukushima, and the disaster of Fukushima is hardly over, but we will see a return to large support for getting the Japanese nuclear industry back and up and running. So this is all the things we can look forward to in the new Japanese government, and I sincerely believe that this new election has shown that Japan is going to go down a very dark path indeed, and join the United States hand in hand as part of the spreading the global American empire and hegemony, and also to indulge further in the military adventures, foreign military adventures, and the global war on terrorism. We're going to see the central bank flood Japan with cheap money, and we're going to see more government debt and spending, and it's all going to come crashing down at some point, just like everywhere else. So, arigato. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.